Bombshell Brunches, where your hosts Raquelle Rodenberg and Kristina Lau sip and spill with badass babes every Tuesday morning.
It is Tuesday. Oh, it's us. It's just us this time. And it's February.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's 2021.
2021. Oh, okay. Let's talk.
Yeah, we're gonna take a little rendezvous and look back on the year of 2020. God, like anyone really wants to do that, but I think it's important. What has been going on
Oh my
in
gosh.
2020?
Well, for us, my goodness. Everyone who's been listening, I just want to say thank you. We launched Bombshell Brunches, the podcast this year. And I don't know about you, Raquel, but let's take aside, as if you can, but let's take aside the global pandemic for a second, and just you and I recognize that we sat down and spoke about launching this podcast. This was your thought at the start of the year, and then maybe it was March that we really started talking about it, and then maybe it was what was it, August, September, where we were ready to kind of launch.
Yeah.
And launched it, and that was huge. We had 2020 is not like we had all these social movements, we had all this stuff that happened, we had so much internal turmoil. There's part of me that's like, I don't want to pretend that I know what everyone else has gone through. So I'm focusing on Bombshell Brunches and what we learned from the guests that we brought on and how we changed. So yeah.
Yeah, and just how we changed in our own lives too, I think. And I don't know, I mean, for me, 2020 was a year of action. Like I did a lot in 2020. We launched Bombshells. I moved to another country. I applied for my master's. I got into my master's. I made pretty massive decisions, pretty massive changes, but I think actually the pandemic helped with that because all of the what ifs are kind of silenced because you know that the what ifs are there for everybody in every situation and they've just proved it. It's concrete, it's in front of you. There are no guarantees anymore. And it's just whatever was sitting in your head and telling you like you're what you like to say that you have an idea of control, all of those are just gone in a puff. Well, for me anyways, it was gone in a puff of smoke. I was like, okay, that just proved that concept wrong, so I'm gonna just go for everything that I want and whatever happens.
Well said. I think actually, yeah, the 2020, I liked that you did that in a kind of bullet point method. So you got into the masters, you moved country, you missed that bit. You changed, obviously left your job in order to pursue this masters. You left your partner who's now pursuing his goals in a totally other country as well.
Yes.
And you're still together and making it work and loving each other, which is wonderful. And did I miss anything? What else did I miss from you?
I think those are the main ones.
And the
I mean,
podcast.
and then the podcast, of course, is a big one. And then I think just like a lot of internal shifts too. I think that was really big. That's the part that, maybe can't be seen as easily, but that made massive shifts in my life. And yeah.
So for me, I think if I look at it from January till December 2020, to go with the Gregorian calendar, because we'll talk about Chinese New Year, which is my New Year coming up. But I left my previous job. I resigned. I started a new job. I got my New York visa. Sorry,
Woo!
my
That was a
US visa.
big
That
one,
was
people. If
a
you don't
big
know how
one.
hard that is, it's really freaking hard. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
kudos.
Um, Thank you. I started working more in film and television than I ever have. I launched a career pathway program concept that now gets to be iterated in different ways. And like you said, and we launched this Bombshell Brunches podcast. This I just booked my very first audiobook, which I didn't tell you.
What?
So I doing the voice. So I'm doing voiceover recording for that. I moved home. I rented out the place that I own. I in the process, hopefully we'll have now rented out another one of my family places that we needed to deal with. And I, same as you, shifted internally and started really thinking about, I think you and I, through the lens of this podcast, really started thinking about how to hone in our next level up. And both of us leveled up through extreme adversity, extreme pressure. I remember one of our episodes, you and I talking beforehand, and me just being like, I'm broken. Like, I don't know how to do this. And I just want to say to our audience that last year, that 2020 was a shit show in so many ways, and watching people rise through it and deal with what had to come at them has been incredible to watch.
Yeah, and I think while it has been a painful year in many ways, that it's been really transformative, and in a lot of ways, it's been transformative in really it's good. Even if you look at, gosh, all of the adversity that's happening in the States, these are things that needed light shed on them.
Mm-hmm.
And the situation there hadn't changed. It's just that it was maybe not so clear to people, to everybody, what was actually going on. And so, at least my experience this year has been a lot of not always comfortable, but very important changes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. And
It's been a free fall. You've been
has it
kind
been
of
a free fall?
we've kind of like jumped out. We've been pushed out of the same plane, and we're like, oh, this is happening. Oh, this is happening now. This is happening. This is happening.
Yeah.
And I want to keep bringing this back because Raquel, you and I are still learning. We're learning how to podcast. We launched this and we were like, we're not ready, and we're never going to be ready. And one of the big things that you and I have always had in common, and the thing that I want for our listeners to remember, our darlings out there, that have listened to, so many people have listened to every single episode, and we get so much feedback. And the thing that I want you all to remember, if I may, is that you don't have to have the answers, because nobody does right now.
Mm-hmm.
You don't. We talked one episode about building a really strong foundation of family, friends, and finance,
Yeah.
and and we had guests on to help you do that, and to help us do that. But I think it's really important to remember, as we look back, firstly, to take some time for yourself to sit down, to write down those bulletproof achievements
Mm-hmm.
that you have personally made. Like, take 5 minutes, write those things down. Did you make new friends? Did you do something outside of your comfort zone? Did you did you lose somebody that you didn't mourn properly? Because one of the other big things I think that we're going to come against now is, and my career coach Larry said this to me, he was like, I think it was him, he said, we're not going to know what the impact of last year was, because at that time we were in it. I
Mm-hmm.
was walking down the street the other day and I was like, this is normal and I am dealing with this. And when it is done, I am going to grieve. I'm going to grieve the loss of the friends that I couldn't have. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
grieve the loss of the perceived freedoms, or however you want to describe what you went through in 2020 is going to be really important to articulate when you're feeling safer.
I think that's a really, really important point. And that's something that I've been thinking about a lot recently. Um, I don't know. I'm going to go out on a bit of a limb here and talk about something, but there's something that has always confused me, and that's people saying, you need to learn to let things go, or you need to learn to move past something. And I think a really important thing that I've come across is one, I always sat there being like, how? Like, you're all saying,
Mm.
like, just do it. And I'm like, how does anybody do that? Like, what are your action steps for that? Because that's how I think. But the only time I ever went to therapy, I was like, I've got 2 weeks for you, and I have this many things to do in those 2 weeks. So I need you to make this happen.
Oh my
That's
God.
possible, right? She just looked at me like I was an alien. Um,
That is not how you go to therapy, everybody.
I'm not very good at it.
To be very
Um,
clear.
this is your time frame. Can you do it? Um, but but I mean, now I'm starting to feel like I'm understanding and I'm learning ways to process things and all of that. But the biggest gift that I kind of gave myself this year was realizing that you actually can't deal with those things till you're ready. You just can't. Like, you couldn't have done it sooner because you weren't ready sooner. And I think that that's difficult for a lot of people, or even people around someone who might be mourning someone or might be just having their own timeline. There's a lot of judgment put on them, like, oh, you should have been over that sooner, or how are you over that so fast? And I think it's just really important to remember that everyone has their own timeline. Everyone's dealing with a different amount of stressors and can handle a different amount of stressors, and they're going to process that in their time that they need to. And you can't rush it. It doesn't work. It's just one of those things that you have to sit back and let it happen.
It's interesting because as we've gone through some of our guests and had really in-depth conversations with them, one of the things that I have been learning is when I look at the lens of, like, I look at the world through my lens, and I have realized more than anything that me understanding what my lens is and taking the time to take care of myself and understand and unpack, is this coming from, like, am I really letting this go, or am I just ignoring it? There's a big difference when your version of letting
Absolutely.
something go might be me avoiding. And I became very avoidant for a part of the year, where I was, and I justified, and I went, and then I came back. And when I'm not addressing the things that I need to address, now, a lot of us don't have that skill set inherently. We're not
Thank
taught
you.
that. We're not,
Thank you.
we don't have the, we're brought up on, we have our modeling systems, we have our environment, we have, some genetic disposition I'm learning through some of the reading that I'm doing. But we're really letting the term letting go. And when, I've had a conversation where someone said, you just don't accept people for who they are. And that there's a lot of truth to that from my perspective. But there's a difference between not accepting someone and good enough for me not being good enough. Like, good enough not being good enough. There are all these little nuances that I think through the year we've had a lot of guests who have helped us to understand how to create our own inner dialogue. And that's, to
Hmm.
me, more important than me telling you what my opinion is about a thing. I can't tell you how to get to the next level of your career, but I can tell you how many people I've spoken to, what those through lines are, and hope that you have enough space for you to find your version. And that's always been what Bombshells has been to me. It's been about not telling someone how to take the next step. Because if one thing has been taught to me this year, it's that the traditional methods of you do this, and the linear, like, take the step, and then this will happen. The coronavirus just threw that out the window for all of us. And we're in a digital age. We've spoken about this in a previous episode. We're in a digital age where it's the Wild West. You're getting canceled. There's so many social commentaries with people who are too afraid to talk about how they feel for fear of being cancelled, shut down, judged, and not enough people who are listening. And I also mean listening to people that we thoroughly, inherently disagree with, because COVID is real. However you decide it's real is real to you. However you justify it is real to you. But so much of that is based in fear, and I get very upset when people are like, oh, these anti-maskers, all these people who don't believe in the vaccine and all these things. And what I'm seeing on my feed is a reflected hate on both sides, rather than someone going, you're really afraid right now, this is how you are dealing with it. To go back to what you were saying, Raquel, you are processing it the way that you can, the best you can right now. Whether I agree with it or not, I is not for me to say at that moment.
It's interesting what you're saying. I made it actually. I don't even think I told you this. So you're picking up my vibes, or I don't know. Maybe I was picking up yours before. But my goal this year that I made for myself about a month ago was to listen. And by that, I specifically mean listening to people that I don't necessarily agree with. And by that, I don't just mean listening to what they say, but asking questions as to why they're coming to those answers. Now, very few people, I would say almost nobody, really actually truly knows why they feel a certain way. They might be able to put words to it and articulate it a certain way, but it's actually using a different part of your brain. So the part of your brain that uses emotions is the reptilian brain, and it doesn't actually have command over the language. It has no language command, so it cannot put that into words why it's feeling that way. It's very reactive. Yeah, so but what you can do by asking questions is start to at least glean an understanding of maybe what their background is, and start wrapping your head around it. And I mean, some of the stuff that comes up, I understand people's frustrations or fears because with certain things like I want to say like certain vaccines or whatever, because it's putting the collective at risk
Yeah.
potentially.
And I
So,
agree with that. Yeah.
so I understand that, but also at the same time, I think you're completely right in saying that we're not going to learn how to make change by yelling and making more noise.
You and I talk a lot about being raised as women, walking into the world, into glass ceilings, into a still very unfairly uh, weighted sense of value in the workplace. These problems they still exist. And one thing that I realized to that point that you just made was I was having some conversations and recognizing that I was asserting myself in such a way that I was emulating that which I wanted to not happen anymore. So what I was doing was walking into a room and saying, I'm going to play your game. I'm going to speak the way that you speak. I'm going to do things the way that you do. And I lost a little piece of me because what I realized, and then I found it, and that's good because I wanted it back. But what I realized was I was walking in thinking, suiting up and armoring up and going, this is what we need to do. I have to be able to play this game to win it. But actually, what I've realized is the systems that we've put in place are not, and a lot of them we're not conscious about. Those systems, they're not working for us for the future. We need more nurturing, caring, solutions-based people. We need to not have to yell at someone, and we can do it, but it's a lot of work. And I've said in a previous episode, it's not necessarily our fault, but it is our responsibility if we want to be the leaders that we say we need.
I love that. And actually, along that same vein, our episode with Bean and Body Butter with Ali and Betty, yeah, they really inspired me a lot that night. They really, really inspired me. And A big part of that was because they are so at ease with their femininity. They're
Mm-hmm.
so nurturing. And I was raised, I guess, like a lot harder and maybe not as in touch with that. Like, it's not that you don't have that in you, you just don't show it.
Mm.
And that really inspired me. And I just thought it was so beautiful talking to them. And that was another thing that I kind of took away. And I said, I really wanted to start working on that, like not being afraid to let that show, because
Mm.
you're right, especially when you're in business or if you're in a competitive field, you can kind of take on more of an aggressive or more masculine tendencies. And I mean, all men and women have a mixture of both, realistically. But I think
Mm-hmm.
we need to celebrate the softness more as well. I think
Yeah.
there's real benefits in that, and we're lacking a lot of it.
I think the on the flip side of that coin, what I loved was having guests like Shannon Lutmer and Kenny Starr, who were very, very clear about their no's, about
Mm-hmm.
that. This is how I'm going to say no to you. This is how I'm going to say no to you in order to say yes for me. and
Yeah.
and I think we set our year of podcasts so well with those people, as well as with Michelle, who was like, this is your brand, this is your style, this is your life, this is how you style your
Mhm.
life to be fabulous for you. And I mean, those were just the first three. Every time we sit down with somebody, we sit down, and come out a better person. uh
Yeah. And
it
it's
really.
inspiring. Like I found after
Mm,
after the episodes I'd be googling more information. Like I wanted more.
mm.
Show me more of
I
that.
did not.
So,
I did not do
no.
that. No. I would just walk out and just lay flat. You know how those people like walk out of somewhere and you see like a 5-year-old and they go to their bed and they just like flop face
Yeah.
first. Yeah,
Yeah.
generally that's what I would do. I'd just be so exhausted. I mean, I was very happy and I was like, "Oh, great, there's stuff to do." And then I'd be like, "Oh no, there's all this stuff to do." But yes,
To
I
be
know what you
fair,
mean.
directly after I was like that. Yes, directly after. But it did inspire me to start looking into them more. Yeah, I absolutely loved our episode with Beatrice King. I'm so happy that she
Mm.
brought up Eckhart Tolle. I'm so happy that it reignited my interest in reading more of his books, because that's something that's always been very near and dear to me. She reminded me of a lot of my yoga teacher past. A lot of these things that in my very early 20s I had learned and internalized, and they were such good lessons. And then, a decade later, you lose touch with some of them. You get busy and things get
Mm-hmm.
in the way, and it's really, really, really healthy and good to have a refresher, I think.
Oh,
It's,
Beatrice was amazing for that. She really
yeah.
was. I mean, I set up my 60-minute mindful morning ritual because of that
Yes.
and because of those days. And I've been doing it and I'm so grateful to her. I encourage you, like audience wise, to all our babeses out there, I want to highlight that Raquel and I have worked a long time for us to be able to carve this amount of space for us to do this. That is not your job, other babeses. You don't necessarily have to do that. But one thing I want to highlight is we're doing this so that it can fast track your path too, if it does help. And we spoke about this, all these self-care things that we talk about. Like I had a friend message me today and say, I haven't got the full 60 minutes in, but just listening to and seeing that happen has been, it's inspired me to create my own. And again, just coming back to, I will always speak to people, I will always speak to all of you from a career pathway lens, because to me, being equipped to live your most fulfilling life in a way that is sustainable is what makes me super happy outside of my own creative pursuits. There's the two sides of me, right? There's the me as an artist that's fulfilling myself and my soul's journey, and then there's the me as the member of my community and that is giving back. And well, not, I don't even want to say giving back, because I'm gaining from that as well. I don't like the term giving back because I'm learning at the same time. And so the reason I'm bringing this up right now is because Raquelle and I talk a lot before these podcasts, and we always try and get a lens through where you can see what your next step is. We don't want these guests to be people who are already Oprah, who are already Annie Leibovitz or Anna Wintour. We don't want guests who have quote unquote made it, because there is no it. We want for you to all have a chance to digest what we're doing, because we were going to do it anyway, and we were going to call up these people anyway and ask questions anyway. We're just sharing this with you. And we just would love for every single person to be able to take one little step. And that's what Donna said in her episode. She was like, you don't have to, we talked about weight, we talked about opportunity. And she was like, you don't have to be able to do all of it. You just have to take one little step. Just take one little step.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so, I totally agree with that.
So when if we're to do an active exercise right now, if you're listening to this, I want you to take like 15 seconds and just think for a second about your last month and your month ahead, and say, what was one step that you could have taken? Little tiny one. And now what's one that you can?
So, what are some rituals that have taken you through this year?
Me?
Yeah.
I thought we were asking everyone else. I was like, we're going to be waiting for a while.
No, you. What are your top rituals? Like, I know you've done quite a bit. You did cleanses. You did, like, I know you have your 60-minute morning ritual now, but you had a different one before, slightly different or adaptation of. So, and then maybe there's stuff that we just don't know about. What are the rituals that have that have really? It's been a rough year. It's been a rough year, but it's been a transformative year. So what's taken you through? What's the best ones?
Reading and writing. I realized I will never know enough, and that I can never process better than when I write it down. That's just for me. Yeah. Because when I'm a lyricist, my music is based on my lyrics. It's very, very strong. And this year was a lot of processing. And I listened and I read and I wrote. But the other ritual that I had, which, yeah, you're right, I'm about to tell you what a lot of people don't know about, is I wouldn't call myself religious. I wouldn't even call myself spiritual. But I think I am probably all of those things. I just am averse to putting names on or labels on things. I learned how to listen to whatever you want to call energy, universe, God, being, power, however you want to describe it. I gave myself enough space to do that and to lean into it. And I call it the universe. I say I'm leaning into the universe hard, because I've been, I think, sadder this year than I have in most years. I lost a really extraordinary friend this year who passed away extremely suddenly with no rhyme or reason. And she was an absolute hero. And I think that this is the first time I have spoken about it, but it has set off a series of events that means that for the rest of my life I will be different. and better. And one of the songs that I wrote was about being better than I was before, because that's the best possible thing I could give to someone that I've lost, is to that person that I lost, is to be able to say, if I had listened to you sooner, I would have done these things. So now I'm going to do them. So those
That's
rituals came in
that's
from that.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've it's interesting that you say that, because Christine and I talk before the episodes and in between here and there, but um it's funny when you say leaning into the universe or really giving yourself the space um to turn, I say turn inwards. Um that's been my most transformative tool as well, actually.
Mm.
And sometimes I can do that by doing like a seated meditation. Um, and sometimes I can do that by just going alone for a walk. So I've been doing lots of walks. Um, and yeah, I think that that is a huge, huge part of just finding peace and really being able to understand your journey.
Mm. Yeah. And
Yeah.
yeah, I like that you call it turning inwards, because you had a lot of kind of breaking moments of like, oh, this is who I am. Oh, I have to go and work out. Like I remember one episode where you were like, I have to move. I have
Hmm.
to be moving, you know. And all the little realizations and light bulbs that we had throughout. And also that we need to surround ourselves. We need to bathe in good music. You know,
Yes.
we need to celebrate and value the arts, because that's what brought us together. That's what brought all of the people that, or many of the people that we know, together. Our Winter Wondermind was one of my favorite episodes,
That
just
was
because it was a warm
so
bath.
beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
If anyone who's listening to this hasn't seen it yet, I know it's past well, it's still winter. It's still cold. Just go listen to it. Go listen to
Mm.
it, and it was really I think it's a very special episode. I had a lot of heart and soul in it.
Oh, yeah, it was wonderful. So speaking of that, like, once you give yourself that warm hug, to all our babes that's out there, what are the things that you want to start doing for next year? Like, Raquel, you and I talk about some of the things we took away from an episode perspective. And I'm just going to quick fire a bunch, and then you quick fire a bunch that you took away that are little tips and tricks and survival and thrive mode. For me, it was, that self-care ritual, financially auditing myself, really facing that, having good communication with my partner or my family about finances, really important. Fierce friendships, really creating that foundation of fierce friendships, and learning how to sift through news in a way that doesn't weigh you down. Uh, those were some takeaways. Before I say them all, you say some.
Oh my gosh, you love the rapid fire. I'm so not a rapid fire person, but I will try. I will try. Um, I mean, I was really, really excited about the financial episodes that we had. I think there was so much to learn there. I loved the idea of surrounding yourself with the things that you want in your life, so creating abundance. And we talked about that in the financial episode, but with Bougie Budgeter or Raquelle. But I think even taking that a step further, it doesn't need to be money. It could be whatever it is that is your goal or whatever. I also loved Michael's idea of having a word. So a single word for your year. She does it on her birthday. You could do it on New Year's, or you
I
could pick
do
a
it
random.
every day now. I do it
Do you
every
do it
day.
every day?
At the end
So
of my journal, I do it
yeah.
every day. And I'm like, what's my word for today?
Oh, I love that. I do a mantra. I do a mantra every day.
Oh,
Yeah, so it could be a word or it could be a phrase, but we can get into that after.
Great.
That was a really big one for me, and I've started slowly because I've been pretty slammed until now, but I've been slowly incorporating that. So putting images on my phone that I want to resonate and I want to keep close to me. I'm gonna do it on my desktop. I used to do vision boards, so it's kind of now a digital version.
Mm.
Um, Oh my gosh, Tamara had so many good ones
Mm.
that we took away. I don't even know how I could pick a single one, but I think
Let it
just
go.
let
That
it
was the one.
go.
Yeah.
Let it go was the big one, but also just I think giving yourself the space. Like one thing that she said that really sunk in for me was that everyone has a different phase that they're in.
Mm.
Everyone's in a different phase and we have different phases. And that really gave me the room to accept that it's okay for me to be in different phases.
Right.
Whereas before I would have been like, this one phase is the only phase that's okay. But no, now I'm like, okay, this is a
Right.
totally normal thing. We go through these. Obviously, Beatrice King talking about meditation. So that's something that I'm now doing or trying to do on a daily basis. Talking to Donna about working out. I know that's something that makes me happier. And basically, just taking everything like you're training as an athlete. I think that's a really good way, whether you're going to school and you're going to study like you're training like an athlete, or you're actually going to the gym. But whatever you're doing, you need to love it enough and be joyful enough about it that you actually enjoy the process, that you are actually happy to sit down and study. You're happy to learn these things, or to
Yeah.
sit down at your desk and make changes in the world, or even your own little world. But you have to be excited about that.
Well, I think that's a really good point because when we spoke to Carolyn from CQ Voice, I was
Mm-hmm.
like, all this stuff is so overwhelming. So when you are like, when you and I are in a space where we're talking about it, we're like, you can do this. You kind of, I go away and I think that, and then I go, fuck, there is so much to do. How can I
Mm-hmm.
do this? And this is where I think I want to really go through what you and I have had to go through in creating this podcast. We've had so much pressure. So many times I've been like, I can't deal with this. And you've had to pick up the slack. We've looked at each other's lives and gone, okay, you're doing way too much right now. Or, you know, I need you to help me in this. We have so many factors, babes, is that we cannot control. And so I think it's really important for going into 2021 to be able to say, how do I make one thing a habit before I make the next thing? And when we talk about all of these really great resources, I would just caution everybody, including myself, to not do the New Year's resolution thing the way that people talk about it, not say, okay, I'm going to be this way and this way. Um, you might get to that point, and I know I did, and I know you did, Raquel, at various points in the year. You might get to the point, like we did, where you went, okay, I've taken too much. This is way too much. At that point, take a little step back and say, okay, what am I dealing with right now? How do I fix or resolve or address that situation right now? And if that is you saying, you know, for me, I had that when I was working at the edge of my bed and feeling like I needed to take a step up in my career and having no idea how to do that. Instead of me going down my subconscious pathways of what I normally do, say yes to every job, say yes to this, say yes to that, like go into my subconscious mind of decision making, I stopped. And I spoke to you, I spoke to my career coach, I journaled, and I stopped myself and I said, okay, that's my past version of me now coming back up to try and defend me because it can see that I'm going into panic mode. Let's take a second, do the breathing in and breathing out that Tam has taught us. And now, what would I like to achieve as my best version of myself? how do I do that thing? And what I did was recognize, okay, me wanting to not work at the edge of my bed was me feeling that like I lost control over the situation of me not being able to fly to the States and pick up the job that I, and ramp up what I was doing in the US. I had to deconstruct all of that first before I then chose what my best habit for that next phase was. And I'd really encourage all of you to take a second, and do that for yourself. And it might well be doing nothing. It might well be, I'm just going to stay put because I know I'm feeling this, and this, and I can't tell if it's real.
I think that's such a good point, and I will just say a little bit further to that. I think sometimes you're in crazy periods, and it's okay to do none of the things. If you know there's an end in sight and you can put a stop there, like for example, when I was moving, I had exams, I was saying goodbye to everybody, like there was so much going on,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't do any ritual. I was just trying to make it through. I was like, all the energy I have is to just actually let me survive this moment. And sometimes that's okay. Sometimes you just have to be in survival mode and you're not going to be your best self. And that is totally fine. And everybody
Mm.
does it. But put an end date on it, because the part that you want to avoid is when that turns into months, which turns into years, because
Yeah.
that's what really starts affecting you. But doing that in the short term, there's absolutely no reason to beat yourself up for it or do anything like that. Like, just let go.
Mm.
Let it go, Tam.
Uh,
In my head, I didn't even realize it. But yeah, I think it's really, really important to know where you're at. I think that's a really good point. Know where you're at,
mm.
and then really, really either think about it or just tune in, feel it. What do you
Yeah.
need? Sometimes it's not even, you can't put it into words. Maybe sit there and try to meditate or go for a walk and just whatever it is that you need to do to just let go and let the thoughts run out of your head, and to feel and try to get an understanding of where you're at and what you need. I
Mm.
think that's gonna really, really help you. Just give yourself that space.
I think that's a really great way of putting it. I think I'd like to tune in to 2021. I, I,
Yes.
I'd like to be a part of it. I'd like to be a part of 2021. I'd like to tune in. And
Yeah.
I think, on the back of that, you and I have worked, we're very ambitious. We like to build community. We want to make a positive social contribution. And I think a lot of people do. I think most of us really inherently do want to do that. Um, so when we go through all of this, I do want to do a very quick shout out, because and share a little lesson that, Christy Chan came on board and started doing our audio, and initially I was like, I don't know how I'm going to be able to afford this. I don't know how, but at the same time, she had contacted me because she needed resume guidance, help. She was looking for work, and that's my background, is empowering people to take their next step in their careers in the creative industry, specifically music to begin with, but now it's branching out. And I realized that the solution to our future, in my way that I can help uh, towards our collective future, is to create active succession plans. And what I mean by that is exactly what we do with Bombshells, is further ourselves and share it at the same time, rather than showing a finished product and subscribing to, that void of not being enough that so many magazines and imagery and advertising is geared towards creating a vacuum that we want to fill.
Hmm.
that's not serving us anymore, and I don't want to be a part of that, and I want to tune into what we really need in 2021. And so I wanted to say thank you to Christy, because she rose to that challenge like I've never seen a person. She was reliable, on time. It all sounds great. She got multiple job offers within weeks, and I'm really looking forward to hearing from the rest of you out in the audience and seeing how that manifests for you, because you might listen to one episode and say, I've got a morning ritual and that ritual helped me to get to this point. Or I started using my voice thanks to the lessons that CQ Voice put out, and I feel totally different. I just wanted to add that at the end there, because it's really important for us to tune into 2021 and to make the changes that best serve us as individuals and us as a whole. Because when you walk into your career, when you go to, there's no day job anymore. There's not going to be a day job soon. It's gig based. If you're a creative, you want to feel fulfilled every day. We've got to start looking at all the things that we're talking about with these guests. They're all as important as the other. It's not about just having good finances, having, a great job or a great title. It's not destination based, babeses. So I wanted to leave that on that table there.
Right over there. Okay, so quickly, let's wrap this up with things you want to start doing for 2021.
Just tune in. I'm just going to tune in.
I love it.
I don't think I can do much more than that.
I think that's the shortest answer you've ever given.
Oh my gosh. It's the new me.
You're already doing it.
What about you?
I'm going to be going inwards for 2021. I've already started it. I'm going to continue. I'm going to be very present. And my goal this year is to let go of, I don't want to say all, because it's probably an impossible goal, but as much of the things society puts on you, all of these ideas and mentalities and feeling enoughness, validation. I'm just letting it go, and I'm going to live freely as me. That's my goal for the year. We'll see how far that gets me.
I think Harpo put it really well when she said, come home to you.
Yeah. And I think, I do think it really comes down to being present. And I've noticed that a lot lately. We're so on our devices. We're so busy. We have so much going on, and it can be very, very hard. Actually, I think personally it's impossible, but maybe someone can prove me wrong. I hope you do. I think it's impossible to be at one with yourself at the same time as being as busy as we tend to make our lives. So what you were saying about clearing out space for yourself on the daily really resonates with me for 2021. And then 2020 in a phrase?
Move over.
Oh, that was good. That was good. Okay, I like that one.
See, this is my new me. Fewer words. Next podcast is just going to be silence.
Kristina. Oh, I like it.
How's yours? What's yours?
That's it. That's it.
Cool. Well, good job. Good job, us. Good job, you out there.
Virtual high five.
Virtual high five. And happy Chinese New Year in a couple weeks. It's February 12th. Really excited about that. It's my favorite holiday of the year, so we're going to do something special for that. And we will see you soon.
Next Tuesday.
Bye, darlings.
Bye.
Thanks for listening, Bombshells. In order to continue to elevate, subscribe and don't forget to click that little bell so you can get notified every time we have a new badass brunch. Until next time, stay focused, fierce, and fabulous.